All right, hello everyone. I'm Molly. We have Ian and Jimmy here, and yeah, we're here to tell you about some new templates. So I just want to give a quick background of templates. The purpose of this is to kind of show, create some templates that you can fork, some notebooks that you can fork that are for specific use cases for work. A lot of times when people are using Observable and they're sharing what they've done, they're most likely not going to be sharing a lot of their internal work use cases. And so the point here is to be able to showcase some of those, create them in a way that people can fork them, put in their own data, and then immediately get some use out of them. And today we're going to be focusing on some useful tools for DevOps across the dev stack. So looking at some GitHub PR, pull request visibility, integration test, and HTTP status dashboards. Anything else to add on that, y'all?
I'm excited to see him.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, Jimmy is going to start us off. So Jimmy, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Just a little bit of background about me before we get started. Work at Observable as an engineer and I'm also starting to do some data viz work. So this developer workflow templates is related to things that I'm pretty familiar with from my job. And one of the things that I'm really excited about with Observable is that we can kind of integrate different parts of the developer workflow, starting from the development process and the pull request process, going from there to deployment and then post-deployment and monitoring. And our goal today is showing how the templates that we've made can make us better at our jobs at every step of the way. So yeah, I'm gonna start with the GitHub pull request and some visualizations around pull requests. This template is mainly helping us get more visibility into the state of pull request and seeing if we can help move anything along. And it's kind of been informed by my own experience as a developer and knowing that pull requests can get stuck sometimes, or the reviewer might have too many things on their plate. And so this template is doing what it can to make that data more clear and accessible for everyone who uses it. So yeah, we start off with this observable templates landing page, observablehq.com/templates. We can go down to the developer workflow section right here, and then we'll see the GitHub pull request visualizer. So with all of our templates, you should remember that you need to fork them in order to edit them. And in the case of GitHub or many other templates that require some type of integration, forking is going to allow you to use secrets or API keys where necessary. And so we're just going to start doing that here. Okay, and so when we fork this, we can see that we're getting the last 100 pull requests from the Microsoft TypeScript repository, which, TypeScript is very popular. It's got a ton of pull requests that are kind of fun to explore and look at and see their different states. So right off the bat, this is loading data, one by one, getting pull requests, getting the events, as we'll see later. And, as they come in, we can see that this template categorizes them into 3 different categories, and these have meanings for us as both reviewers and authors of PRs. So we can see that they're categorized into reviewed, not reviewed, and drafts. And once this data finishes loading, we can dig into a little bit more. So yeah, we'll see that this has just hit the GitHub API and it's pulled the last 100 open pull requests for the TypeScript repository. And we can see that most of them, 40 plus have been reviewed in some state. And then we can see out of these 40 somewhat requests, 24 of them are waiting on an author to do something. And we can see what that looks like in a little bit. 12 of them are waiting for the reviewer to do something. And 9 of them actually been approved in some form or fashion, just they haven't been merged yet for whatever reason. And the next view of the pull request can allow us to get curious about why that is. And also for the ones that have not reviewed, we can see that 12 of them have no reviewer assigned, and 24 of them have a reviewer assigned, but for whatever reason, they haven't been reviewed yet. So that starts with a high-level categorization, and we can begin to break down our open pull requests into these categories that we kind of understand as humans. So from there, one of the ways that this visualization helps us is to see all of the events associated with particular pull requests, and that's what this timeline view shows us right here. So for here, we're looking at specifically the PRs that have been reviewed and are awaiting reviewers, and we have a legend here that annotates all of the events that have been associated with a particular pull request. And you can see the ones that are awaiting reviewer have commits as their last event. And basically, we're assuming that those commits are now in a state that can be reviewed again. Yeah, and you can hover over each of these commits to get more information about what had happened. You can see the number of changes associated with the PR as well. And if you click through, you can actually see the PR itself. So this is just another view into all the activity that's happening with this PR, but it's just being clumped together in one category. And I think this view just kind of lets us get curious about what's going on with certain PRs. Like immediately, sorry.
I was just gonna ask you, like, what do you think you would use this for?
Yeah, so I think I would just look at this if I were a manager, if I was someone who was overseeing a project with a ton of PRs associated with it. And I could look at this view and just kind of get curious as to what's happening with certain PRs and see if there's anything that I could do to expedite that process. So, for example, like right here, I can see that there's a lot of comments for this particular PR, and I might just want to click through and like read through it and see if, maybe is this something that has a lot of back and forth, has a lot of churn through it. Can I get those people in a room where we can discuss these things synchronously as opposed to asynchronously over GitHub? But another thing is that I think there's a lot of factors for why pull requests might get stalled, but one of the reasons might be real simple, and it's just that the person who is reviewing the pull request just doesn't have enough bandwidth. They have a lot of pull requests that they're reviewing so far. So this particular view shows, out of all of the reviewers in the repository, how big are the PRs that they're reviewing. So we can see that Wes Wiggum for the TypeScript repository is responsible for looking at a lot of PRs. So one of the ways this view might inform us is, okay, maybe a particular PR is in a stuck state because the reviewer just has too much on their plate. So for example, we can kind of see here, we can look at a PR that's not been reviewed and has a reviewer assigned. We can see here, Buckton has been requested reviewer, and at sometime later, there's a comment by the author saying, hey, any progress on this acceptance? And one of the things that we can see here is that if we hover over this particular event, we can see the correlation between our Buckton's reviewer load. And it's possible, I don't know for sure because I'm not, a member of the TypeScript repository, but it's possible that maybe just our Buckton has too much on their plate, and we can maybe reassign that reviewer to someone who has a little bit less at this moment. So what this template does is kind of integrating all these different views of PRs into one place where you can begin to get curious, like notice for some patterns about what's happening. If there's a lot of activity, a lot of comments, maybe we need to make some decisions together, or maybe the people we need to spread out or load balance the reviewers so that not one person is overloaded. And so, yeah, this is kind of like, I think this template is kind of showcasing the power of Observable, where you can easily interact with the template to change the view on whatever you're curious about, and yeah, from there help you do your job better and get this PR shipped faster.
Yeah, and so can people use this to link it to their to private repos?
Yeah, that's a great question. So over here, this is using the TypeScript repo, and TypeScript is a public repo. But if you follow the instructions here and you create a personal access token to use with the GitHub library that we're using in this notebook, and you give it a repo scope, and then you save that token as a secret in the observable settings, like we have right here, then you'll actually be able to access any of your own private repos that the personal access token has access to. And yeah, that would be pretty useful if you're a manager, if you're a developer working on a team setting and you want to look at what your own repo is, how the state of your own repo, just so you can help make more informed decisions.
Yeah, and just worth noting, and I'll post this in the thread, that there is a walkthrough of a different GitHub template, but it actually, it's a YouTube video, but it actually shows how to do that, how to set up and authenticate with GitHub. So
nice.
Sharing that in case it's useful.
Yeah, and I like to emphasize that it's using secrets is really secure, right? Like they only work on either your private notebooks or in a private team setting. So if you do this, fork this into a team and you're working with your colleagues, you can have that secret and have this dashboard, but like nobody outside would be able to see this data.
Yeah. And then I was just looking to see if there were questions. Oh, this is kind of an interesting one. It's not what this is showing, but I'm just going to surface it. It'd be interesting to see if larger PRs, more commits, are less likely to be approved, and maybe with the inverse.
Yeah.
I agree. That would be interesting.
Jimmy, I remember as you're developing this, you did look at different ways to think about like size or activity, right?
Yeah, we could. I do have size as a size of the PR as a column in this data that we're looking at. So we could, look at this real quick and see what happens. I think it's changes actually.
So like defining the size of a PR is, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, now this is correlated with, now the size of each dot is associated with how big the PR is in scope. So if we look at ones that have not reviewed, or reviewer assigned, not reviewed, you can see some of them stand out. The one, awaiting the reviewer, some of them are pretty big. So yeah, there is ways to visualize that as well.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
And I think this is interesting too, because it, if someone, like once you fork this notebook, right, it's yours. So if someone went in there and made that change and then they wanted to change more, or like, right, like it's all something you could do to customize it to your own liking.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's like a starting point as well for people.
And I think there's ways that I categorize this that are just kind of like heuristic based. But if you had your own system of maybe labels or like what PRs are in certain projects that indicate their state, then you could do that as well to get a more formal categorization of these PRs based on whatever your organization has set as precedent.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
I got to see too that like the data that's powering these charts is pretty clean, right? Like you've done a lot of work I mean, the GitHub API is pretty solid, right? But like getting it all together in one place and being able to like see it like this. If someone had an idea, like maybe this one, you like to, where they want to see the rejected PR rate per developer. That's something that we could probably calculate with the data in this notebook, right?
Yeah. Let me just to who does not respect developers' time. Yeah, I think you could do a lot of stuff like that, which is like time to first review. You know, you can segment that based on the size of the PRs. So yeah, with all of this data, because we have the events associated with each PR, and they're combined in a way that you could do that pretty easily.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah. And so I know we have another GitHub template as well. Did we want to look at the, what is the next one? Yeah, integration test status. Or is there anything else we want to add for this before we move on?
I think, we could take it to the next one, and then we can always come back. And I think at the end of the stream, if people have more questions, we can answer those. But here's
this is a good question.
Yeah, let's add that in. Jimmy, do you want to?
Yeah. Did you have to do something special to avoid GitHub API rate limits when downloading all this PR data?
That's a great question. If you have the personal access token and you're authenticating with that through the OctoKit API, or we have other templates that are accessing GitHub directly. As long as you have that personal access token, then your limit is going to be much higher. So since I was developing with a personal access token with a secret, I didn't run into any of those. But yeah, if you don't, then you probably will.
Yeah, and that's what I think. All our templates, we have like sample data cached. So if you're not logged in, you don't have a secret or anything. You'll see the sample data and won't actually hit the API. But like once you fork it, and if you had the secret, then you could explore the API. You have 5,000 requests, right, in an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. That was a great question.
Yeah. Maybe I can show the next template, and actually that one, there's a little bit of for people who are interested in exploring the GitHub API more, I can show something briefly with that too. But why don't I go from the templates page to, I'll show this integration test flakiness. I'll just click this. So this template loads data from the GitHub Actions API, which you can use to run continuous integration tests. And it does analysis on like how flaky they are, right? So like if tests are failing a lot, it's good to know if that's happening sort of systematically, because basically every time you're deploying some code, right, and you're waiting for the test to pass so that you can, or so you push some code, you're waiting for the test to pass so you can deploy it. Like if they're constantly failing or inconsistently, right, like it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts. Like it doesn't ruin your day, but it slows you down. It slows everybody down a little bit. So oftentimes fixing tests can be like, feels like such a small thing because it's like you just rerun the test and it works or whatever. And, but like adding it up, it can be a cost to developer productivity. So here we're looking at some sample data of, I think, the Svelte JS repository. And we look at jobs that fail, but then pass when they're rerun. So that's like, they're flaky tests. And so these are ones that we'll probably want to look into. And then if you're, trying to figure out more, you can see the ones that fail. And then we also, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. So I was gone for a moment and back. I was hotspotting for the first part of this, but internet's back. So hello,
Nice.
yay. I was just curious, did you already talk about what an integration test is?
Oh, no, maybe I should do that. Actually, maybe, so I'm a database developer at Observable, and I have not written any integration tests. I do most of my stuff in notebooks. So maybe Jimmy can give a little breakdown of how this fits into the developer flow.
I can, this is related to PRs, at least at Observable, and I think different organizations have similar setups, but the way that our integration tests work are that after you've submitted your PR, then we'll have integration tests that are run automatically on each pull request. So, you can imagine that this is the next step in your development workflow. Okay, we've figured out, we've submitted pull requests, and now we're looking at integration tests. And, more specifically to answer Molly's question, integration tests are, they're also known as acceptance tests, but they're testing the functionality of the site or your website or your product from the perspective of an end user, and you're trying to mimic any actions that they might be taking. Like, for example, for notebooks, it's making sure that you can, execute a notebook, share it, fork it, all those things. And how, a lot of times if they fail, then it might be because something in your code is off, there's a bug in your code, or that it might be flaky, which is what this template is helping us with. And you want the signal here to be as high as possible so that when they do fail, that it's more likely to be a bug rather than a flakiness in the integration test itself. So I think that's what this template helps out with, is like, okay, I can look at this template and have knowledge of, okay, this particular integration test seems to fail a lot, and maybe it's flaky inherently, and it's less likely to be due to my code, but also it'd be great for us to fix this flakiness so that we don't run into this problem in the future.
Nice. Yeah, and this chart, I want to point out, is like on each row is a test. So like a suite of, right, it's like something that runs, and each column is a commit or a PR, right? So like, and then sometimes you can see that a commit, like it fails, or like they get canceled. So there's something up with that commit probably, right? Where it's a lot of things are either failing or getting canceled. But yeah, sometimes along this test, you're seeing that it's canceling often. And so that can give you kind of an overview of that. And you can click on any one to go. Well, that's what I was doing while you were talking. I was clicking on a particular run, and then you go into GitHub and like see what actually happened and try to debug it. Like, so if this one failed, and it like failed on this command, and then it'll have like a bunch of the output of, oops. Yeah, I don't know. This is not a repo I've worked with. I'm not sure what's happening with it. You did, you could. And just very similar to the template that the pull request template, right? There's instructions on forking it, authenticating. We do show, like, there's some options that because GitHub Actions, you can have multiple workflows. You could like filter stuff down to a particular branch. The data, like this is like a table view of the job runs, the integration test runs.
And what are GitHub Actions?
GitHub Actions is, I guess, like an infrastructure for running stuff like, so the integration tests are actions. Like there's like, I guess you can say like whenever someone commits to this repo, do this thing, like take this action.
Mm-hmm.
And the action it takes is like running some code, which is the tests, right? Is
Got
that
it.
Yeah, it's like I think the nice part about it is it makes it easy for you to get all of your development set up that you need in order to run your tests, like all your requirements, all your dependencies. I mean, you define that in some YAML. So like, oh, pull this Docker image. And the nice thing is it's you can connect it to certain events, right? So I can connect it to every single pull request that's created. I can connect it. These are all triggers. I can connect this every time a pull request is created. Then I want to load up these dependencies somewhere and run these tests. Every time something is merged into main, then I want to do the same thing. And then from there, it's kind of like from there, you based on the success of those actions, now you can do other stuff. So it's pretty useful.
nice? And I guess to go a little bit deeper for those, people are asking about the API, that kind of thing. There is like this notebook gives you more. Like here, if I'm not logged in, right, this isn't my notebook. I'm not using the secret. I only have 58 requests. Like we can calculate the rate limit. And so if you were curious about directly playing with this API and like making your own visualizations, or and you can even edit, like you can use this to change actions, right? Like you could make new ones and programmatically and all kinds of good stuff. So that's just, if you do want to go deeper, it's there.
Do you want to post that link in the chat?
Yes.
Actually,
let me do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Sure. And now, the video that you shared earlier is about the sort of cousin template to this one, right? Where if I go back to the templates, I'll just point this out. Take 1 minute to show it.
Sure.
Because this is using the same data of like the integration test runs, but then looking at how long they take. So per, each run, you can see like whether it's taking 2 minutes, 4 minutes, some are taking like the canceled ones are being canceled after 10 minutes, right? So that can be another thing that you may want to optimize, right? Because if you're like, if everyone's losing 10 minutes all the time, that's not great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a question for you.
Sure.
Is the caching of sample data for templates done through file attachments? If not, is the caching data feature available to users?
It is done through file attachments in all our templates so far. And we can actually, this one I was just showing does, it has like runs and workflows, and then we have this thing where we can check to see if you have the secret. And if you do, then we don't use the file attachment. Sorry, that's confusing. If you don't have the API key, right, we want to use the file attachment. And if you do have the API key, we ignore that. And so there's logic in here that you could see how, we use that check. And yeah, but yeah, it's really just using file attachment. Like we do it with the API key and then save out the data and upload it as a sample. It's a pretty handy pattern. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to get, actually, Molly's video covers this template pretty well. So
yeah, which is linked right at the top there. See this tutorial.
Yes. So definitely, did we share this link in the chat? Anyway, I can do that real quick. So, we have several different GitHub things to look into and try out. It's pretty cool.
Did we get all the way through kind of what you wanted to show for the integration test status?
Yeah, I feel like I did cover what I wanted to share there.
Cool. Is it time to go on to the AWS
I think so.
HTTP status template?
So I'm pretty excited about this because for a couple of reasons. I worked on like cloud monitoring stuff for quite a few years, and in past jobs I also did that internally. And this is actually a template for Amazon Web Services, but it's using a visualization component that I do want to talk a little bit about in a second. That's open source and written by Mike Bostock. And I don't know, to me, it's just really cool to be able to apply that to like a very familiar type of data, right? Logs data. This is specifically looking at HTTP status logs, right? So if you're running a website and somebody visits your website, if you're using Apache or whatever, you have some access logs that if someone successfully visits your website, it's going to be a 200, right? A 200 status code. But if they try to go to the wrong URL or something, like the wrong page that doesn't exist, they'll get a 404, right? And we got, most of us probably know 404 not found, but then there's other statuses like redirects and permission denied and like server error, right? 500s. And so the thing is, right, a lot of websites get too much traffic. You can't just read through those logs. And most of the cloud providers do have some kind of dashboard with some line charts of your logs. But what's really nice about this is like how compact it is and how how much you can see at a glance.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just curious, like, so by looking at this or choosing, one strip or whatever, like, what is this telling you?
Right. So this is actually sort of based on a real event that happened to us where a deploy actually caused a bunch of 403s to start happening. Like somebody had a bug and didn't realize. I can't honestly remember what the bug was. I wasn't involved in fixing it or anything, but I remember seeing it, and we use a dashboard like this internally. We actually use a different service for logs, and we'll be publishing a template for that pretty soon. But what the nice thing about this is that it works no matter what tool set you use. Like we'll be able to like make a visualization like this. So what this is showing is that, right, like for most of the time you get almost no 403s, right? That's the normal situation, and that's probably a good thing. It's common to have 404s because there's like bots out there and scrapers and people just typing weird stuff in their URL, whatever. But obviously, like here, you just get this bright purple, right, for this stretch. And so if you had this thing up on a monitor, or you're just kind of checking it after you deploy, you could see that something like that, like weird, just pops out, right? Like also these colors get a bit lighter, and that means that like normal traffic has some of this, it's like a little bit wavy, but you can kind of visually see that like all of a sudden, right after this happened, this ramps up and these ramp down, and that's like, okay, that's not right. What's happening here? And that's what happened internally. Is we noticed that. Well, I shouldn't say we. Someone noticed it, and then saw what commits were recently deployed, and looked into like why that might be causing that. Found it, and then deployed a fix or rolled it back. And then here you can see that these stopped happening, and then traffic kind of picked back up to its normal state. So yeah, it's each line is a chunk of time, and so each colored, like each pixel, like as I move my mouse, right, like this blue here is showing 8,000 within this like 15-minute interval. I believe that this sample data is based on 15-minute intervals. So this is going back over like several days because each pixel is 15 minutes, right? So you can see quite a lot of stuff in a very compact space. If this was like a line chart, this would be like really hard to read. And you can see that, like, you know, some of these things are just, they're happening, but really what this is helpful for is keeping on like some monitor. You know, if you're in the office, you'd have like a monitor up with this on it, like refreshing. Yeah. Curse of breaking commits on a Friday afternoon. Was that? Oh man, that was 2 p.m. on the 16th, Friday. Yeah. A nice catch there, Jonathan. See,
So-
Ian, improve your developer workflow. Don't deploy on Friday.
Ian, can you talk a little bit about how the status logs are parsed, or like what's being returned from AWS and how that's being processed by Observable? Like what is the template doing? What
Absolutely.
do you need to set up in order to get a view of this?
Yeah, so this does depend on you having AWS CloudWatch logs set up, which is a thing. I mean, you know, I linked to the documentation, I linked to the like AWS console. I think that, you know, if you use that service, which many people probably do, you'll have it set up so that, like, let's say you have Apache on your servers, like AWS has an agent, like CloudWatch agent or something, that's like reading those logs and parsing it into their system. And then what we're doing is, like, you know, they have this idea of a log group. You tell us what that is, what its name is. If you like were to click on this link and you have AWS, it would show you the list of log groups that you have in a specific region. And then we use the Amazon SDK to like run a query against CloudWatch logs. And it's actually a very simple query. Like, we're basically saying count all the, you know, status codes. You can change this. So the interesting thing is that this template could actually work for any kind of logs. Like, it doesn't have to be HTTP status, but that's just sort of a very common use case we want to highlight. But really, it could be anything. Like if you had a mobile game and like you have people collecting coins or something, and there's an event every time someone collects a coin, you could say field is like coin, and it would tell you like how many coins every minute, or, you know, whatever. In this case, yeah, we're doing minute based when you actually run this. So yeah, like this template basically sets you up to query the Amazon SDK, like their API. You would have to have set up that service. And we are going to be releasing sort of alternate versions of this template for other services in the coming period of time. I, you know, won't make any promises on live TV, but we, you know, we internally we use Datadog, right? So we have that. It's like pretty close to done. We used to use Sumo Logic, so we have one for that. Like, I'd love to see this for Azure and Google Cloud, like, because basically if you're doing, like, you know, people use different cloud services, but everyone uses logs, and like getting this view of logs is, I think, a powerful option to have. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mind. Oh, go ahead.
Is there also a Sumo Logic one to share today, or?
I have not published it yet. I need to.
Okay.
Pick it up, but it's very close. Cool. The thing I do want to show, though, is that this time chart, and I can put this in the chat as well, it's an open source component. Paste. That you could use. You don't have to use it in Observable. You can use it in any project. It's JavaScript. D3 based, but a lot of what our template does actually is help you query the API and process the data so that it's in a format that is friendly to this chart component. But you could, any time series data that you want to see in this compact way is something that you could use this to get that view. So I'm excited, like that this is a open source. The things it basically depends on is the start and end range of the time you're interested in, like how the intervals in between that you want to aggregate on. And there's example usage, and you can imagine using this for signups or all kinds of negative.
Are there other kind of things that these are typically used for?
I think like this can be used for like weather data.
Yeah.
Sometimes these are called horizon charts. I think this is like a slightly modified version of like a horizon chart, or the other term you might hear a lot is metrics. So anything where you're just like, counting something on a regular basis.
Yeah, we have a version of this chart internally that plots all of the like analytic events that we've collected on Observable. So like, if someone has forked a notebook, for example, then it'll show up. And it's nice that they're all aligned and you can see them all kind of at once, because you can start to notice maybe like patterns that like, oh, there's a spike here after this particular event happened. There's like two maybe correlated patterns in the graph that you might see for related events. So yeah, it's pretty useful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can use the pieces so you can have the axis to show the time, and then like each of these is one chart, but then as you hover it, like plots that. So it's nice because you get a really compact and dense view that helps you scan. But then once you scan and you see something weird, you can get in and detail it, right? Like see that, oh, that happened at that date, that time. Let me go look at the list of logs that happened at that time. And I'm actually, I'm working on a template. Like AWS also has a CloudWatch metrics, which is like the CPU usage and even like how much money you're spending per minute. And like, so I'm pretty excited about that view of like,
oh, cool,
what your machines are doing or how much you're spending like in this way. And you'd be able to see if like all of a sudden, right, it's like things are getting expensive at 2 p.m. on Friday. better do something.
Awesome. Yeah. With the HTTP status template, can we go back to that? Yeah. So is there anything special people need to do, or did we already talk about this to like set it up? Oh, okay. Yeah. So has the authentication stuff there too.
Yeah. And yeah, some of these are optional, you can customize, but yes, the authentication is very similar to GitHub. The difference is that AWS needs, there's two things, and there's there's really complicated, or not complicated, but complex security models in a lot of these kind of platforms. So you can definitely make a user that can only see like certain things and get the API keys for that and use that in your, template. So you don't have to like, you can be pretty secure about even what's being seen. But again, this will only work for you if you're logged in, or for your teammates if you do it on a team.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. And if anyone has any questions about any of the templates that we've been talking about, feel free to post them in the chat. Are there what other things that we want to make sure and share, before we wrap up today?
Well, I guess we always want to point out that we have a lot of different kinds of templates, and we're making more constantly, right? So definitely check out this page see.
Here, I'll post it in
Yeah,
here.
like we got business planning, product insights, user research. We just talked about all the developer workflows. We've done some streams about these too, like we did 2 weeks ago, right? The remote work series. We sang happy birthday, so check out the recording. Or don't,
Yeah.
because I was really embarrassed, but you know.
Yeah, and more things are kind of going to be continually added to this as we go, and as more things become available. And as Ian mentioned, like there's like some others that are very imminent. So, what are you going to add, Ian?
Well, these boilerplates are a new thing. We have, we just sort of put out and hopefully get Toph back on the stream to talk about. He worked on a lot of these sometime soon. But if you are, you want starting points for a bunch of different web technologies, and say check this out. Just want to give that a shout out.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
saves a lot of work if you can just
yeah, I can't tell you how many times it's like, how do I start the map? Like I made a lot of maps in my career, and like, there's a lot of pieces that are important, but this sort of just loads them up for you in the like right way. I mean, there's more than one way to do things, of course, but like this is a great place to start. Map-based visualization, right?
Sometimes like the most important thing in order to pick up momentum is just to see something on the screen, and once you do the thing that makes it yours, like once you do the slight customization that makes it your visualization, then you're kind of off and running. So those boilerplates should help with that, just like lower the floor so that you can go off and have fun with whatever you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's several of those, and definitely try them out. I guess the last thing I want to shout out is the meetup. So we do have a meetup page where we are like coordinating. You can get notice about upcoming streams and events. And we have a really cool one coming up next month with Mike Bostock and Deepti talking about data viz. It's exciting.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I didn't know that we were doing that. That's cool.
Yeah, we are. That's gonna be good.
Yeah, and to just anyone in the chat about, we'd love to hear any feedback about what type of things that you would like to see as a template. Some of the things that do really excite me about Observable and its potential is the ability to kind of combine and integrate a lot of these templates that might be pulling data from different services into one thing. So you can imagine something that would do some correlation with like the GitHub pull request data and the monitoring data to see, see if we can notice any patterns there, or like deployment data. So we're getting excited about thinking about what that might look like, but we would love any feedback or ideas or just like wild suggestions about things that you would like to see, or things that you wish you had but don't exist for whatever reason, or just anything that you might be curious about. And we'd love to hear that feedback, and that's the kind of stuff we love working on. So
oh yeah, totally. I mean, like a lot of these just came out of this our own internal needs, right? Of like, oh, it'd be really nice if we could see this in this way. It would help us, with XYZ use case. So
yeah. I think I think it's pretty neat to, as someone who does a lot of like developer stuff, because I am an engineer. It's like, it's pretty neat to use your own product to write tools that help you do your job better. Because I think, in the previous companies, like you'd use some external service, and there's just no real good way to like customize the tool to do what you want without having to spin up a lot of stuff, like a lot of boilerplate or infrastructure that you have for that particular use case. And it's nice that Observable just gives you all of that, and you can just get started. And as we have more and more boilerplates and more and more integrations with the different services, we're trying to make that as easy as possible.
We have another question. Can you import AutoProf data and make it easier to explore service diagnostics?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming AutoProf is like a profiler, I guess. I don't have much familiarity with it, but yeah. Is it for a particular? Yeah. Is it for a particular stack?
Trying to do a Google, but maybe Graham can respond in the chat too. Let's see.
Yeah, because that'd be really interesting.
Tool, oh no. Use it on Golang services at Twitch.
Yeah, okay. I think that'd be really interesting if you could have, I don't know, like I know if you had that data with like even shadow instances of whatever's running in production, if you can have the profile data, if you have the profile data and then you can correlate with that with any monitoring type data or latency type data, then you have a lot of, those two things go hand in hand. So yeah, that's something we can look into for sure.
Yeah, and if, Graham, if you're interested, like if you get a safe to share sample and like upload it as even if it's just a file attachment on a notebook, right? Like we could look at what that data format is. Like for me, what's exciting about Observable is like, there's so many good visualizations on the platform, people doing really interesting stuff, really cutting edge stuff. Then being able to apply that to a specific data set, right? But if it's a specific data set that is useful in a lot of cases, then like, to me, that makes sense as a template, right? Because then it becomes like, let's take this really good way of looking at data, figure out the structure of this particular, API, right? I mean, if a profiler always spits out a certain data format, we should be able to have a notebook that can like parse that, make it like reshape the data, and then put it in a good visualization. And sometimes, the work is figuring out the visualization and writing it. Sometimes most of the work, like I think with Jimmy's pull request stuff, a lot of the work was figuring out how to visualize it, right? Like you got the data. I mean, you did a good amount of work preparing the data as well, but like in the HTTP status one, there was already a visualization I knew I wanted to use. And it was just like, how do I turn this SDK stuff into something that I can like plug into that? So yeah.
So we've started getting a bunch of questions streaming in. Shall we take a look at some of them?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think these are great suggestions.
Yeah, so is there a way to publish a notebook in which the data is collected through use of a secret key?
Let's see.
Well, not publish, but you could, so if you publish a notebook that uses a secret key, the secret will not work anymore. Like that's for security. That's so you don't accidentally share your data. If you purposely wanted to share it, probably the easiest way to do is to like take that public or take that secret data and attach it as a file attachment or host it on a web server or something. Alternatively, if you're trying to like share it with your teammates, right? If you have an observable team, then you'd be able to create this private notebook and like share it with your team, make it so your teammates can see it, and then you could all use it. So I mean, those are the two options there right now.
Click the wrong thing. Where was I? Oh yeah, okay, so here, could you produce and upload static pages from Observable so that people who don't have API keys could watch those reports?
Interesting.
I mean, I think one of the ways that could work is what Ian was just talking about. If you're all working in the same team, you can have concept of viewers and editors, and the viewers might not have access to the actual API keys, but they can still look at the notebooks and the data being returned there. That's the first thing that popped up in my mind, but There might be there might be a way to do it with embedding. I'm just not sure how that works with like secrets and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think I don't think you can embed, because that would still be some kind of publishing, right? Like, because even if you link share a notebook, which is a form of publishing, secret stuff.
Yeah, you can't.
It's all about trying to keep it secure.
Yeah. I know, I know certain companies have like proxies that are for their internal networks that are looking at Observable and using the API and getting the compiled code basically for the notebooks, and then they have a proxy for the notebooks that are now like you can share as static pages within your organization. So that's an option as well.
Yeah, and there's other, like, depending on, a lot of it depends on how much you want to invest in the tool chain. You can actually run observable notebooks from Node as well. So like, or you could even use the GitHub API to like push content to GitHub and have that be like published as GitHub pages or something, right? Like, or through an action. So yeah, there's a million ways you could do it. And I think you have to get more specific on,
Yeah. And
let's see. So we got asked, do we have templates for US Census data? We don't have anything like that right now, but that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I have, and actually I have something that's not a template, but let me see if I can find it real quick. Something that I would love to turn into a template for sure. So where's the US or counties? And because I use the census API. This is before we actually started figuring out like that we want to do templates, like sometime last year. Why can't I find my own?
Well, if you want, I can always move on to the next until you find it. We can come back.
Sure, I can come back to that. Oh, no, wait, I found it.
Nice. Good timing.
All right. So I think I'm still sharing my screen, right? So I can share this. And I'll put it in the chat as well. So this is something where, like, I believe county population uses census data. Census API here, or like demographics, right? And so, I mean, like, to make this a template, like this would be a good example of like, there's too many things in this notebook, but if I had one that was just about like, because just even figuring out what all the fields are from the census is like a good bit, right? So you only want to do that once, and then everybody could just use like this nicely formatted. Like, I also made like nice join stuff to get like the keys, and then set it up by like these years, these different. So
and like something that sometimes people ask is like, well, what's the difference between just like a published notebook and a template? With templates, we're trying to like make them pretty simple for people to basically just like fork and just have to put in their own data. And that's it, one input and then these outputs that, so there's other notebooks that are much more complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, or they're an example or tutorial. You can do the same things with both. You can fork them, and then you can edit and add and everything. So it's just the main difference is just about making templates being something we're trying to make pretty simple to just put in a set of data and have it work for you. Just for context. Let's see what else. Let's see. Examples of streaming data from various sources with various outputs: D3, Vega Lite, Plot.
Oh yeah, that's a good suggestion, because Observable has really good use of like generators that you can use to like stream data in from a live data source. And since it's all reactive, it works pretty well. So a lot of that you don't have to do, as long as you get the data flow set up correctly, then the chart will immediately update. So yeah, I think Ian's showing us something.
This is fun.
So yeah, like this is based on a couple of things, but Emoji Storm, it is like showing how you can use emoji tracker to like get real-time emoji data. And so like these are like just falling into these bins, but then over here I'm aggregating. I'm actually using the time chart to show like emojis per second or something.
This is from Twitter, like emojis that are tweeted.
This, Twitter. Let's see, and then Mike has a Wikipedia recent changes, right? So like, I'd love to see a more like Viz version of this too, like breakdowns. I mean, you could do time chart and you could throw that anything, right? Like per language or something.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that like, this is just plopping the text in random places, but you could replace this D3 code with a simple D3 code with more complex D3 code. You could put Vega Lite or plot. So yeah, seeing how like use generators here, or I think this one, yeah, this is like all of them. Yeah, using this generator pattern that Observable has, and I linked to the documentation there. So like there's patterns in Observable for getting real-time data and getting a lot of it even. And so, yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, this is fun. I forgot about this. It's really entertaining to look at. I think there's just a couple more. Let's see. You developed boilerplate templates with interactive tables connected to a scatter plot.
Well, I noticed that there was a boilerplate for a scatter plot. And it's based on this data. And the thing is, you can use the observable inputs to get data in a table. Maybe I'll fork this to get started. And so I think one of the cool things about Observable, actually, this is one of them, is that not only can you quickly get a table and a scatter plot, right? This is using Observable plot, but we can actually do something like view of selected in here. And if I start selecting penguins, like it's just plotting those penguins. I guess in like.
Yeah, and I think once you get familiar with how to do these, it becomes kind of addictive to chain things together and just have filters everywhere. Just to let you explore data and slice and dice it however much you want. And just to add on to this, like the inputs is a really good way of, like having the interface so that the rest of your cells can participate in data flow and interactivity. But I also think it's part of the upcoming work for plot in order to have the actual marks themselves be part of data flow as well. I think that's upcoming work. So, if and when that happens, then yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to make those, have examples of those as templates.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, this is.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, nice.
So easy.
And if you want, Ian, you could share that in the
let me
chat. Yeah. And then, let's see. I wonder if there is a full screen button for certain elements so that it will fill the entire browser window.
I searched for that. You know a good one, Jimmy?
I don't know if it's a specific cell that does that. I don't.
Well, basically, I found this example of searching. So if you actually search for full screen, you'll see that like a few people have made some of these. So
there was also a thing at the D3 parade, I remember, where they had it so you could like I don't know if it opened a new tab or if it went full screen. I
Oh,
can try to
well.
find that one. Ooh.
Yeah, so it basically is just using browser stuff to like
Oh.
find that like this canvas cell is an element and it's using the browser API. And Vishnu, our esteemed colleague, says under the notebook menu, view full screen. So this is the whole notebook full screen.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, so that if you want, as the notebook author, you want to give someone the option to make a particular cell, you could follow this pattern.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through to see if there's any other. Do you guys see any other questions in here?
I did see the taxi viz,
Oh yeah.
which would be fun.
Where is? Oh, this one. Sure.
Yeah. That's an awesome viz.
Well, awesome. I think that brings us to the close. I think we've gotten through all the questions, and this was really fun. Got to show some examples of these DevOps notebooks. Yeah, if people have one thing to note, this has happened naturally in past streams before, where people have ideas and they want to add them. Like, you can comment on templates to provide feedback. There's also in all the notebooks, there's like a little help. Oh yeah,
Like,
are you?
add a
Oh yeah,
comment.
there you go. Yeah, so Ian's going to demonstrate. So you can add a comment straight in there. And then do you also want to go over to the question mark and show where people can kind of like, there we go. So there's like forum, contact support. So anyway, there's a few different ways that you can kind of provide feedback to us. So keep that in mind. Keep an eye on the templates page. There's going to be more coming out. So and there's a lot more than what we just talked about today. And as Ian mentioned earlier, the meetup page, the Observable meetup page, keep an eye on that. And there'll be, the fireside chat next month with Deepti and Mike Bostock. Is there anything else to add at the end here? Did I get it all?
I know we have more streams in the works. So if you join the meetup, like they'll be announced, you can keep up with them. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks.